Hi, today on People and Money, I'd like to welcome back my good friend, author, illustrator, teacher, Jane Ruthenberg. How are you?
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Well, thanks for coming back over.
Thanks for having me back.
And we'll get into the book in a minute. Obviously, we had you out when you wrote the first children's book, and we talked a little bit about it. And, for those people that might have missed it, I can't understand how, but let's talk a little bit about you first. Okay. So we're going to talk about you as the author and the illustrator, but a little background first, where where Jamie actually got all started out.
Okay. So you want me to start with the
Little
first
hood,
interview?
like from when you were like.
Oh, for little.
Yeah.
When I was, where the roots of this comes from is when I was little, I used to draw. That's all I used to want to do is draw. And like on rainy days when other kids are doing, watching movies, playing blocks, I would sit and I would draw and sketch. And I also used to write. I used to write poems, cards, and those were the two things I was naturally drawn to. So that's the roots of it all.
So you were young and obviously grew up in the township, grew up in this area, went to Chippewa Valley High School. When you were in school, did you lean towards like literature and writing? Was that like something that you really had a passion and creative writing and stuff, or just kind of did it as fun? Yeah.
I was an athlete in high school, and I really was heavily involved in athletics. But I did love English. I loved literature. I liked math too, to be honest with you. I liked a lot of things. I was a teenager, so I was kind of like going with what was fun and exciting, and sports was very, very fun. So, but yeah, I did tend toward that, and I did tend toward more artistic things. But it wasn't blowing up at the time because I had a lot of things going on.
So you're finishing high school and you're applying to college. Did you sit down and say, I want to go to college because I want to be a writer?
No. You know what's funny? I did not declare a major until maybe the second year at Michigan State because I wasn't sure. I was so heavily into sports, and at the time, State, and when I was a senior, State was scouting me out for track, and I was really focused on this, and then I blew my knee out, so that didn't happen. So once I was at Michigan State, I kind of felt a little lost for a short while. I had to re-find who I really was again because I got caught up in that. So and I started taking English courses because I naturally would do that, and started writing, and I had poetry published, and just went with. It was obvious at that point. It's kind of naturally drawn to it again. So I kind of rediscovered myself again.
So it isn't like when I was 5 years old, I knew I'd be a writer.
Well, you know what? I will say though, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be either an animator. I loved Disney. I thought that was fabulous, and or an artist in some way, painting pictures, and I didn't know quite what to do with that, but I was trying to think of what other people are doing around me that I'm seeing images of, and so that's really where it's interesting because that's what when I'm remembering now. Yeah, that's.
So you did everything. You went to college, became a teacher instead.
I became. Actually, I became a writer and producer right out of college, and then went back and got my master's. That was for Channel 7 at the time. I was freelancing. Then I got my master's degree, and then had written a novel and poetry, and was starting to become a college English professor at University of North Carolina, trying to find a way to incorporate, make some money and incorporate it into, what I'm doing. Fun.
Yeah, it helps. Still got to eat, no matter what your
real
passion
life.
is. Yeah,
Exactly.
Real life we call it.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah.
So the second book, the first book was fun. We introduced Miles. The bunny, and the sneaky squirrels.
And the sneaky squirrels.
And we talked about continue forward. Before we get into the story, which is fun, it's children's books.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it in what your mission is.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about why the book has teaching aid in it, why the book has recipes in it, because mostly a children's book, you read it and the kids love it and they're done, they remember it, and they pull it back out again or they don't. But you wanted to go beyond that.
I did. There are a lot of layers to this. And partly because of things that I'm interested in, and partly I taught kindergartners, and I saw what teachers, when I started doing this, I really wanted to incorporate or make it in a sense that it has educational integrity, so that teachers can go into a room and teach a lesson and use this in writing lessons for lower elementary and comprehension and reading acquisition, because these are the kinds of books I wanted when I was teaching. So I wanted to incorporate that into that. I thought that'd be a wonderful, it'd be a wonderful educational tool, teaching tool.
I think a lot of books profess to try to deliver a good, positive message, try to make kids feel good about themselves. You have a little different approach. I think you're teaching your lesson through our buddy Miles, the bunny. Is there an underlying concern that you have with kind of what's changing in society with young kids, and maybe drawing back a little more to what we used to call the good old days? They weren't that great all the time, but
they were the good old days. I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, so yeah, this is a throwback to that, when things are slower. I think I mentioned in the last interview, everything's going 90 miles an hour now, and everyone's staring at their phones, and everything's edited in 2-second boom, 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 boom. And I want to slow it down a bit, and it's handmade too, so there's nothing digital. It's like it's a handmade, organic thing, or piece of art, or a reading that I just want to represent a little more centered time, I guess is what I can say.
Okay, and so, are you trying to go back to something, or engage kids in something that maybe, you're fighting an uphill battle?
I don't feel that I am. I haven't felt that yet. I really haven't. Everyone is so enthusiastic. I'm getting it in the hands of teachers, and I will tell you this, I haven't put it on Kindle yet. You asked me last time I was here. I haven't done it yet, mainly because I've been so busy and it's kind of a complicated thing. But I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be against putting it on Kindle, because like I said before, they're reading a book. They're not sitting there playing games on it. They're reading. If that's the only way this child's going to read a book, then I'm for it. But yeah, no, I don't. So far, I haven't felt that. So no, not so much.
So you in this particular, I like your books because I can read them fairly quickly. They're more at my level before I do an interview. Bullying is a major, major concern today in America at all levels. Unfortunately, all the way up to the top levels of adults, not only kids.
That's true.
And yet, you in a way, you don't dwell on the bad part of something. You kind of introduce it, and then you talk about a solution. Do you feel that's going to have enough of an impact, or hope that it has enough of an impact that kids will carry that with them?
I think it will. Sure. I mean, I don't know if it'll solve the whole problem, obviously, but I think it touches on the subject, and I think that it touches on both ends of it. The squirrel, by the way, he says something that hurts the toad's feelings, or has an action that hurts Jack's feelings in the story. Chip the squirrel, he's not a bad person. He just didn't think before he acted, and it hurts somebody's feelings. On the other side of things, the toad's feelings were hurt. So yes, and there is a solution to it, a peaceful solution. And once Chip actually realizes I was insensitive, he apologizes. But I think it stops. I think a story like this can make a young child stop and think for a second, especially if they're reading it with a parent. And like I said, it kind of provides a framework for discussion about things. So I think a child can stop and think about things for a moment, and on either end of that situation.
Do you make carrot cake?
I do. It's my recipe on the back, and it's pretty fabulous.
Okay, so explain. Thank you for not bringing any. It's okay, John. Maybe next book.
Man.
So the recipe, obviously.
Yes, I've been working on that for a few years, actually. And
so how do the recipes tie into the books? I mean, it's kind of unusual to have a children's book that's got a recipe on the back.
I know. I think it's kind of cool.
Or on the entire, like the last book.
Right. You don't find that too often.
No, not at all, actually.
Not at all. Well, I think I enjoy it. Like I said, I'm a foodie. I grew up in my Sicilian grandmother's kitchen, and it's just a part of who I am. And so the seasons now, each book. The first book was in summer. This is early spring. Summer, there were strawberries. That's the strawberry season. That's why I did the strawberry jam. And this, And like I said before, the carrot cake is usually seen as a spring cake, but it's about his mother. It's about the kind of time he spends with his mother, family time. It doesn't have to be in the kitchen, but in this case, this is how they spend time together, in the garden, in the kitchen. That's how I did too. So that's where it kind of gives me the opportunity to share recipes with people, because that's part of what they find joy in it together. So, and so do I. So.
Okay, so let me get ahead a little bit here. We haven't met his dad yet. Second book that Dad's been basically
that really bothers you.
Out. It troubles me. I know Walt Disney created the greatest of all animation and characters, and there was a psychological issue about why the wicked stepmother, and there was wickedness always from one side or the other. You, on the other hand, we have no dad yet.
Right. Well, I'm still standing by what I said.
Do we get like Miles plays baseball eventually with his dad? Or
Actually, that'd be kind of fun.
Okay.
That might be a cool thing. Like I said, I'm not excluding the dad. It's just that I'm trying to bring in his peer group to his level more than introducing another character, because like I said, it's a very small framework to talk about a lot of things. So if I bring in the dad, it takes some time to get to know him too. I just wanted really one adult in the situation. So I could, if it is troublesome, I possibly could work on that. But
okay,
you know,
I think personally that one of the more difficult tasks teachers are facing, parents are facing, is the glut of information the kids get from everywhere: television, internet, cell phone.
inundated.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
At very young ages.
Right.
My granddaughters can all FaceTime me. The 2-year-old can call me. She knows where to go on my phone to look at the pictures. So, how do you, as a person, a teacher, an author, etc., a mom, how do you get kids excited to pick up a book again?
You'd be surprised. It's not that hard. It's almost a natural. It is not even almost. It's a natural propensity. It's just that everyone gets so distracted, they forget. And children, especially kids in the class, or children in home and the classroom, when you give them this book and they immediately, or any really nice children's book that's well done, immediately are just enthralled and just into it. And you just have to give it to them. You just have to make it available to them.
So,
and it's an alternate way of spending their time.
So the feeling that in our automobiles and our minivans now, where we used to have just recently they could watch a movie, and now the new vans you can watch 2 movies, separate seats, bigger screens, like at home.
Sometimes technology doesn't think about what's really the best thing for you.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like to remember that there's still a pocket in the back of the seat where you can put a book.
Reading material.
And actually read it, read it to them.
Right.
Is it difficult to engage teachers now who are, again, they're overwhelmed. They've got so many tasks to complete other than just going with young kids and
They're
read.
overwhelmed, they are, yeah.
They're overwhelmed.
They are.
And you're trying to have them take a deep breath for the most part and say, let's sit down and actually read a good, fun, positive story. Do they challenge you on that? Do they say ever, Jamie, you got a really nice idea, but your books are a little bit corny and they're really not, we don't see where how to tie it in. Do you ever get any at all?
Not once. In fact, it's the exact opposite, because I tailored it to make their life easier. Is really the purpose for them. The purpose of the book is I tailored it so that they actually have a book they can go to when they're teaching letter writing, when they're trying to teach text connections and comprehension levels and different forms of writing, short story, all this kind of good stuff. It's making their life a little easier. In fact, on the website I have, or it's coming up, I'm going to actually have in there lesson plans and ideas to help them based on what they're supposed to be teaching. So. No, they think it's wonderful, and I personally think it's a great book with a wonderful book on top of it. I mean, above and beyond teaching, it's a great piece of work. So it's a nice little package for them, and so far they've been nothing but extremely happy about it.
Obviously, we'll put up how they can get the book. We'll talk about that as well. Anybody that wants to, and I know that you're around a little bit. You obviously love what you do. You're at the different art expos and stuff on the weekends, and standing in 110-degree heat, and reading the book.
Yes.
And, in all fairness, not the best way to make a living, maybe.
No. You know what though? You start from the grassroots. You start from the ground up, and you do what you have to do. And in this case, it's amazing the people you meet, and what happens. Going into an art show, and like the Art in the Village in Clarkston or Festival of Senses here, it is amazing what happens in 2 days when all of these people come out, and the connections you make, and just it's a ripple effect, and it snowballs, and the word gets out, and suddenly you're doing wonderful things like speaking to all these, adult organizational groups and so on and so forth, and children's groups and schools, and it's how it works. It's what you have to do.
What you want to mention, you're available also as a guest speaker.
I absolutely am.
To talk on the areas that
all over
you're most
Michigan.
familiar, which you're most familiar with. And I give you credit because I know you're a tremendous self-promoter. I mean, other than your mom, I don't know anybody that ever talked you up better than you do when you're out there, and you actually believe in what you're doing, which is a nice change to today's world. This is a lot of fun. We got the miles. We'll be able to get the real miles eventually.
I'll talk about it.
Hopefully the frog after that.
Yeah.
Maybe So if you had to start over, because you learned a lot in this process.
Tons. Yeah.
What would you have changed before venturing into this path?
Honestly, the only thing I would change is learning more, like actually physically making the book and what it like the medium I use, and scanning and the process and all these things. I wish I would have known some of this before. I mean, because that's a heavy learning process, and I'm actually in a good groove now. But other than that, really, I think things have been going pretty well. I wish I had a degree in marketing. I wish I had, things like that. And I think I'm doing pretty well with that, but I'm not a marketer. It gets to the point. I'll tell you what, it's getting to the point now when you start a business. It's kind of like this: when you start a business, and suddenly the business is going extremely well, and you realize it's beyond you, and you need to start bringing people in. That's kind of where I'm at, and I'm to the point where I might need a publicist or a marketer to kind of help, because I'm wearing so many hats that it's hard to actually create the product that everybody really loves, because you're doing a million things. So I wouldn't necessarily change something, other than I wish I had maybe a little more knowledge going in terms of the nuts and bolts of creating. But
how much of an effect, a positive effect, has social media been for you with regards to getting this out there?
Fabulous. It's probably the number one way, other than pounding the pavement and going to all this, the number one way I get the word out. And it's free. It's wonderful. It's your friends and family, and people that you know locally, and beyond that, actually. I mean, on Instagram, I now have people from Australia, Italy, artists and authors following, and I'm following them, and it's amazing how you can connect with people you would never meet in your life through social media. So I'm enjoying it, actually, because like you said, the only reason why I can talk about this to people is because I believe in it. I'm not really a salesman, so I really believe in this, and it's fun to share with other people doing similar things and that they're extremely passionate about. But social media has been incredible. It's really it's such a great way to get it out there.
So Miles is obviously our main guy here.
Yes.
And the Wren House Toad is pretty fun book. I did enjoy it. Is Miles stay the main character as the series continues forward?
Yes. He is the heart and soul in the center of the whole.
Where'd Miles come from?
Originally, he came from a little bunny I used to draw when I was a little girl. And I've doodled it, I think I told you this before, I doodle it my whole life. I'd be on the phone and just doodling his little face. And then when it came time to actually write this book series, when it came time to think of a main character, who else would it be but him? His name wasn't Miles, it was just this little doodle, but I gave him a soul and a personality, and my brother loved the name Miles if he had a boy, which he ended up having 3 little girls.
Always.
So, yeah. So he's a little outnumbered. And I thought, how about I make him Miles, So I love the name. I think it's extremely cool.
In in the serious sense of creating a character, creating a book series, and but you obviously have written poetry and novel, etc. Is this the most difficult in making all this come to life for other people? Obviously, it comes to life for you, and that's something that you feel in your heart, and boom, all of a sudden you're off and rolling. Is it hard to engage other people to get them to wrap their arms around all of this with the miles and the teaching aid and the cake in the back?
Yeah, I think it's not more difficult, it's different. But I will say this, I think people, from my experience, from the different genres of writing I've done, this is the one that people want to wrap themselves around the most, because it is, there's the art with it also. It's so funny because the artwork, people are visual and they immediately respond to that. So I find that people really are most attracted to this the most of all.
Well, everybody's kid's at heart anyway.
Completely. And
I mean,
yeah.
I'll read this, but I may not read a book about mechanical engineering because it doesn't really excite
right,
me.
or a literary novel, you know what I mean,
No,
that you might not want to really deal with
Unless
that.
it's got a lot of pictures.
Right, which it didn't have.
That's good.
Yeah, so, and this does.
So what's next? What's coming down the runway so that we can start to think about it?
Yeah. What's next? The next book in this series, that's coming up next. That'll be out in February, I'm hoping. And it's a winter setting. I like to have the books come out in the season that the setting is. So that's the goal there. I'm bringing in a new character, and there's going to be, I won't give the whole story yet. I'm working all the details, but it's going to be a birthday party theme. And there's this guy. This is next too. I'm going to be getting him. This is the prototype. And this is Miles, and I worked on him for quite a while to get him right. And he's very soft, he's wonderful. He came about because, first of all, children are actually sleeping with the book and ruining it because they love him so much. So parents were talking to me about that and saying, you need to
make Miles.
You need to make Miles because he's destroying the book. And also, very actually more serious and moving, there's a very dear friend of mine that has a little girl who's special needs, and she has her vision is impaired, and if she doesn't like a book, she pushes it away. And this one, she actually just wanted to feel him, and all she wanted to do was feel this book, and that was really moving to me. And I thought this child needs something to hold on to. So. When people start a business who are not business people as such. Like me.
How difficult is it? Like you, exactly.
Right. It's great to have people around you that surround you that actually are more business savvy and learn from them as quickly as possible. And that's what I did. And so I just went to friends of mine, and I really listened to people who really knew what they were doing, and absorbed it like a sponge and went forward. And you kind of have to do that. I mean, that's with everything you're doing. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to be jack of all trades, fantastic at everything. So yeah, that's how I did it.
Do you now picture yourself as a businesswoman / author, or an author / businesswoman?
That's interesting. Oh, author / businesswoman. Yeah, author and yeah, illustrator comes first, and writer comes first, and then the businesswoman part I have to be because I have to be. You know what I mean?
So let's assume we're Shark Tank, and I'm the shark.
My daughter loves that show.
Yeah, it's all right.
Pretty cool.
It's pretty good. I like watching what people bring more so than what happens beyond, because I'm in the money business.
And how they deal with the comments.
So I'm on Shark Tank, and somebody has said to you, I want you to go on Shark Tank and get an investor to invest in Miles in the future of the entire program. What do you tell them that would, we're going to leave the money part out, oh, this is what the company will be worth, and blah, blah, and I only sold so many books. What would you tell, why should somebody invest in Jamie Ruthenberg and this particular project?
Because, well, I would explain to them the value in the book. First of all, it's based on themes about treating others as you'd want to be treated, and themes that children need to think about nowadays with all this kind of craziness happening. And, you know, love, empathy, respect. But there's that layer based on this character that exemplifies all that, thinking before acting, and, you know, generosity and charity. But there's also that whole other level that can be kind of can infiltrate, if that's not the right word I could say, but the educational system. And there's great value in this. Teachers are going to, they're going to love it. They really are. And I completely believe in that. And that's an entire different layer to it. And then you have, you know, like you said, the recipe aspect. And I've actually had mothers and fathers come up and buy this book just for the recipe. Yeah. I mean,
good.
it's, you know, $8.95. I'll pay that for that carrot cake, and it kind of.
We didn't get to taste the cake. I'll have to take your word for it. Probably in closing, the only recommendation I, as a great marketer, would have made, anything changed, anything different, so you could take this with you, was I probably would have put an M on the jumper, like Alvin, you know, the chipmunk.
Yeah.
So Miles would have the M, but that's okay. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think what you've done is you've taken something from the heart, which is nowadays a little bit far-fetched in a lot of ways, but you've taken a great idea and it's you, and you're having fun with it, and you know, it's moving forward. It's not there yet. It's moving forward. And
it's a learning process.
We're gonna. What is the best way for people to get the book, or the most efficient way?
Most efficient way is to go to my website, jamieruthenberg.com. You can buy it. It'll shoot you right to where you need to get it, or Amazon.com. Yeah. Or or you can email me and get it directly from me. I'll sign them and send them to you. This little guy is available, and
When is the buddy available?
Mid-September. So by the time this airs,
Good.
And you email me, he will be available right through me. So you email me, and it's right on my card. It'll be right in the information, and I will get that to you. Yeah.
Well. You know, I find it, like I said, I find it fascinating. We said we'll follow this story. We had the other book. We're on the second book. Hopefully we'll be interviewing you on the red carpet somewhere in Hollywood, going, remember us, the local guys, help you get there. And I think Miles adorable.
Thank you.
You know, I give you credit, and we always try to promote people who, from this area, that really, you know, reach out and say, I'm going to try something different. It's really a challenge. And again, I know, and for those of us watching, that you're always available to go to schools or community groups, etc. I know you went to my wife's school, and they really enjoyed it, and they learned a lot from it. So I think that's something we want to keep in mind as well. We'll put your information so anybody can get it. So I guess until the next book, nice seeing you again, buddy Miles. And Jamie Ruthenberg, thanks for coming over and spending some time with me.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having me back.
it.
Yeah.
For my producer, Mr. John Brooks, and myself, Tom Hakim, this is People and Money.
This is CTTV, your Clinton Township Community Television Channel.